The Radio Memories Network is brought to you in part by Liberated Syndication, podcast publishing made easy, libsyn.com. That's libsyn.com.
Welcome, old-time radio lovers, to the Boxcars 7-Eleven Old-Time Radio Pod. I am Bob Camarillo, your host, and for the next hour or so, your guide, as we travel back in time, back before TV was, to the golden age of radio.
En garde, senor. Fight, weakling. Fight, coward. Fight. That for robbing a poor man of his bread.
Look, senor, on the forehead, the mark of Zorro.
The Adventures of Zorro, the mysterious black masked rider who slashes his mark on all that is evil, the letter Z. For Zorro, champion of the poor and the oppressed. There's a black and stormy night in Reina de Los Angeles. And none except those with urgent business dare leave their haciendas. Only Captain Ramon's soldiers are about, in unusually great numbers. For it is rumored that Zorro rides again. Zorro, who is in reality the wealthy, lazy Don Diego Vega, but whose true identity is known only to the priest, Padre Felipe. In the tavern on the plaza, all is serene and quiet until...
Landlord, some wine.
Si, Sergeant Gonzalez. Si.
It is a night to give a man a thirst.
An evil night, Sergeant. They are saying in the Pueblo that the Senor Zorro is abroad again.
Zorro, huh? Mr. Fox. A cutthroat, a thief.
They say he does much good for the people.
Good. Bah. Because he wears a mask and flashes a pretty blade, he gets a reputation for bravery.
He uses that blade, they tell me, to carve the letter Z on the forehead of his foe. The mark of Zorro, they are calling it.
I would not know about that. Senor Zorro knows better than to show himself before a superior swordsman like myself.
I hear there is a reward.
You snatched the very words from my lips. The governor has offered a handsome reward for the fellow's capture. And once I meet him...
Watch out, senor.
Did I startle you, senora?
If you did, Don Diego, it was because you entered on the heels of the storm. Your own energy would hardly startle any man.
Yes, it's true that I do not have much of a reputation for riding and fighting. My taste runs more to words of wisdom or music or poetry.
Meal mush and goat's milk.
Perhaps. Get me a pot of honey, landlord.
Si, senor.
I was just saying, Caballero, that I was hoping to meet the notorious Senor Zorro soon, so that I may claim the reward offered by the governor.
Well, no doubt this fellow is sincere in his purpose. He robs none except officials who have stolen from the poor. Let him have his day, Sergeant.
I would rather have the reward.
Earn it, then. Capture him.
Here's your pot of honey.
Thank you, landlord. Well, good night to you.
Music and poetry, huh? But I suppose he has the right if he enjoys it. If I had his riches, I would not need the reward I would get for the capture of Zorro.
Just what will you do with the reward, Sergeant Gonzalez?
Well, first I will... But what?
Senor Zorro at your service.
By the saints, Senor Zorro. You have come to surrender.
I am on business, senor. 4 days ago, you brutally beat a native. I have come to avenge you. On guard, Sergeant.
But what?
Fight, senor.
All right, you cutthroat. Thief! Stand back while I draw my blade.
Sergeant Gonzalez, someone come.
We have Senor Zorro here.
So, you shout for help, senor. All right. I will go now, but I leave you with this. Till we meet again, Sergeant.
Sergeant, are you hurt?
Your forehead. Senorita Lolita.
Senor Zorro, you shouldn't have come here.
Oh, Senorita, I am too weak to resist even one moment in your presence. My heart is filled with love.
Senor Zorro, and I love you.
Oh, is that cause for such sadness?
It is not because of my love that I am sad. It is because Don Diego is coming for his auntie tonight.
And have you decided to become his bride, Senorita?
I'm not. The governor's men have taken away almost everything from my father's house. We are poor. And the marriage with the wealthy Don Diego would restore my father's fortune.
I wish I were an honest man and could claim you openly.
But it is not as if you were an ordinary thief. You steal, yes, but only to give to the poor.
But my task is not yet done, Senorita. I feel called upon to finish it.
Then finish it. And may the saints guard you. I will always love you.
But you've never seen me without my mask. I may be ugly.
I love you.
Disfigured, Senorita.
I love you.
But your chance to be a great lady, your father and his fortunes, Don Diego.
I do not know what to do, Senor. But God is good.
He saw one of them yesterday.
He was helping.
Yes, I could still smell a perfume.
What is that?
Probably Capitan Ramon and his soldiers. Sergeant Gonzalez no doubt gave them my trail.
Then you must go at once.
But I shall return. Steady, Blanco. Until later. Buenos noches, Senorita.
Please, Inspector Mellanby,
There he goes! After him, men!
So, the beautiful senorita and the common highwayman. But why do you not answer, my pretty senorita? Perhaps you do not know that the punishment for helping a highwayman to escape is imprisonment, eh?
Surely, my angel, I love you
One might
dearly, but
overlook
there are
if you would
times when
consent
you
to
do
marry.
Marry
he's innocent, do you?
I would rather
I don't
die.
know.
Pretty word from the daughter of a man who is almost ruined.
My father, Don Carlos, will not be ruined. For I am about to accept the hand of Don Diego Vega.
I see. You would not marry an honorable soldier, but you would sell yourself for your father's fortune.
Senor,
Perhaps before you and I are through, senorita, you would be glad to accept my hand in marriage. Buenas noches, senorita.
According to my information, he was one of the most unpopular men in London. He had this seems he's double-crossed just about everyone around the place.
I see Don Diego's horse approaching.
Violated a
Are you
contract
ready,
with
my
the
child?
Crossed up his agent on more than one occasion. Nothing. They would have took his place when
Welcome, Don Diego,
you
to
know.
my poor
Take a
hacienda.
sip. Keep
thank
out of
you,
this
Don
one.
Carlos.
The case is closed. It's not closed.
Oh, dear.
Not until that
Long
girl is
distance.
tried and a verdict pronounced.
But it wearies me to ride alone.
good evening, Don Diego.
Good evening, Senorita Lolita. I trust you made up your mind.
I have, Don Diego. I shall be honored to be your
Can I
wife.
help you?
So that's settled then.
I'd like to see
It will be rather a bore, I expect.
My
the
name's Melissa Morgan.
ceremony
I'm
and the
the
wedding
director of the
feast and all
Morgan
that sort of thing.
Senor.
However, I shall tell my father.
Don't
and he
look
can
so
make the
startled.
arrangements. They can send word in to me when...
Well,
Why?
frankly, I can't visualize
Where
you
has she
sitting
gone?
behind a company director.
Have I displeased
That's
her in any
unfortunate.
way? You must excuse
But may I see
Lolita,
Mr. Troy? It's about the Rennie.
She would rather be wooed, I
You
take
as
it,
publisher.
in the conventional fashion. Perhaps
Yes, of
a
course.
guitar
Excuse
beneath
me.
her
A
window.
guitar. I like only to listen.
There's
I
Miss
know
Morgan
nothing of
here,
such
senior.
things.
A director of the
Might be
Morgan
an excellent idea to regard the senorita as if you adored her.
You may go in now, Miss
Do
Morgan.
not speak of
Thank
marriage,
you.
only of love.
I fear that's beyond me.
Good morning,
And yet
Mr.
I must
Troy.
try, of course.
Miss Morgan.
I may go in and see the senorita now.
Oh, but wait a moment.
My secretary says
I'm here to discuss the Steve Rennie case, Mr. Troy.
Is this
We
the house
published his
of Don
novel.
Carlos Perudo and his
We're
daughter?
very sorry.
I
to
am
have
Don
you sick.
Carlos.
Won't bet you.
I have orders to place you and your daughter under military arrest.
Arrest?
I've been a
Who
private
gave such
investigator
orders?
a long
His
time.
honor,
It makes
Captain
me
Raymond.
What is the
I don't
charge?
understand.
Treason.
I'm investigating the
Aiding
case on behalf of Miss Janine
enemy.
Lee.
Yes, I know that.
I've been making a lot of inquiries.
I have my orders.
Nonsense,
I
my
heard
man.
that Steve
Just
Rennick
tell
was
the
about to
Capitan
drop
that Don
the
Diego
Morgan
countermands
Publishing
his
Company.
orders.
I
So?
cannot do that,
Which means you'd have
senor.
lost the residual rights to
Then
the
I
novels.
suppose
That would have meant a loss
fight
of
you.
about
Trying to
£250,000
say
pounds
That
to the
would not
Morgan
be
Publishing Company over the years.
When my
You
father
might
founded
tell
this
the
company,
film
Mr.
It
Troy,
was nothing.
I am ready
It
to
still
go.
is nothing without Steve Rennick's
Come,
novels.
Father.
£250,000, Miss Morgan. What's your think of it?
was what?
Come
Well, I'm not saying he didn't deserve to die, and I'm not
You
saying he
are
didn't have
very
enough.
generous to open your house to us, Don
He's dead,
Alejandro.
and she killed
Sons
him.
of my friends are always welcome to my house, senor.
But
Don't
where
go
is
digging
your
around for
son,
any
Don
other
Diego,
matters,
tonight?
Mr. Troy. None.
He is fatigued.
Well,
and
now,
is
I'd like
tired
proof of
for the
that.
The
night.
police are
Fatigue?
satisfied. You should be
At
too.
this early hour?
And if I'm not?
Oh, but a
Do you
thousand
take a
pardons,
delight in
senor.
courting trouble,
I
Mr.
should
Troy?
not have laughed.
It is quite all
Now,
right.
that
Miss.
sounds like a veiled
I
threat to
myself
me.
wish he had more
Well,
life in
I'll
him,
unveil
more
it.
spirit.
Forget about Steve Rennick's death, Mr. Troy. Forget your investigations.
But don't let me keep you. Go
There's
on with your
300
merrymaking.
pounds here in my bag for you.
Senores.
Yes, you do.
It is Zorro.
Wait,
No trouble.
I have something to say to you. At least hear me out.
Now, about that 300 pounds.
One moment, caballero.
just one client at a time, huh?
You're going to
Thank
be sorry.
I come to urge you to
They're
live
very
up to your
sorry.
noble names. Band yourselves together and
It's a
drive the
shame.
thieving politicians from your land, senores.
Attractive men like
You seek adventure, do you not?
Don't.
Here is adventure aplenty, fighting
Say
oppression.
the sweetest thing. In between.
Even this night, a great injustice is being done. You may have heard what has happened to Don Carlos and his daughter, Miss Senorita Lolita. We know they are innocent of any treason, and yet they have been taken to prison and locked up
And
with
I'm
common
darn sure this
thieves.
virus
And all on the whim
Now,
of
just hold
Capitano
tight,
Ramon.
Julie. I'll have this window open in a minute.
There's a law against this, you know.
Even while you sit here drinking
So
wine
there's a
and making
law.
merry. I
I
urge you,
have to get
senores, make
inside
your
Rennick's
stand.
apartment.
Wow.
Got it. Come on, honey, go inside.
Si, senores.
I like tight skirts.
There is a front door, you know.
Uh-huh. There's also a couple of big gendarmes watching it.
In the morning, be ready to band yourselves together and ride.
Torch?
I shall send word when the time comes. Adios, senores.
Fine, well, you won't slip if I was going.
Somewhere here there's the answer.
May I remind you that the police for the day's already gone?
So impress me.
And they're bound to have searched this place.
Just a moment,
Yeah.
we'll look ahead to the next
What
exciting
have they been
episode
searching for?
in the adventures
Just
of
something else
Zorro.
to tie Janine Lee in with Rennick's murder. I'm looking at it from another angle. Looking for another suspect.
I don't think you'll find one. Oh, what's this? Draft of this next novel, half of it anyway.
Hasn't finished it.
Oh, when you look at the title, Honey Buns and Homicide. There's only up to page 148 here.
149's here in the typewriter.
So this manuscript smells of perfume. And it's not Janine's brand either. It's thick and heavy.
That's interesting. Wasn't Melissa's either. Exactly how many women are there mixed up in this case? Rennick must have collected them like other men collect stamps.
Now look at this typing.
What's the matter with it?
Look at the line I just typed. And look at the typing on the rest of the page. They're different. The manuscript isn't being typed on this machine at all.
Surely, my girl, you've earned a bonus.
Now settle for last week's salary.
Visitors. Douse the torch. Someone's at the window coming in on the fire escape. We must have started somehow.
You see who it is?
Not a darn thing. Keep down. What the devil?
The heat. It's petrol they're spraying around.
Okay, I think it's time. We...
They're turning fire.
And they're getting away, too.
What are you? We're trapped. The flames are all around the window.
The front door, come on. Oh. Torch.
Oh, I've dropped it.
Well, this way, the front door's over here. Julie.
The door's locked.
Of course. Police have sealed off the apartment. You can be certain of one thing. This definitely wasn't Be Kind to Peter Troy week. Maybe that intruder knew we were there, maybe he didn't. Either way, it didn't make much difference. Steve Rennick's apartment had to be destroyed. And, brother, a petrol fire is a good way of destroying anything, including yours truly, plus private secretary. In just 2 minutes, that whole place was a raging inferno. The flames cut off our retreat to the window and fire escape. On top of that, Inspector Mellenby's boys had put a police seal on the front door. And life was just a little more than tedious just then. And I was in no mood for any jokes about barbecued private eyes.
I thought you said there were policemen guarding this place.
Well, there were. The idiots must be asleep. Okay, Julie, stand back. They issued me with a permit for this thing, so I guess it's time I used it. Hey, what's going on? Plenty. Or do they always have fires around here? You okay, Julie?
Yes, I think so.
What the devil's going on here? A fire, and I didn't start it. Call the fire brigade, Johnson.
Yes, sir, right away.
I just knew you'd get into some sort of trouble, Mr. Troy.
Knew it or organized it, Miss Morgan?
There was a police seal on that door.
Look, I can explain, but nobody's going to believe me. However, I would like to know how Miss Morgan got into the act. She got onto the scene very quickly, didn't she? Too quickly.
For the time being, we'll all concentrate on trying to put out this fire until the fire brigade arrives. After that, you've got some questions to answer, Troy. You expect me to believe a cock and bull story like that, Troy?
Yes. It happens to be the truth.
This intruder of yours, was it male or female?
I couldn't tell. The room was in darkness.
Anyway, they didn't actually come into the room, Inspector. Just shoved up the window and poured petrol over the carpet.
Well, I don't think there was any intruder. I think this is all a figment of their very fertile imagination.
Now, don't you start. I'd still like to know what you were doing on the scene, Miss Morgan.
She was with me, Troy. She'd requested permission to get Rennick's half-finished manuscript.
Honey Buns and Homicide.
What's that?
Well, that was the title of it.
Just a minute.
Oh, something wrong?
I don't know. Just a minute. Yes, listen to this. This is a copy of Janine Lee's statement after we arrested her. Steve Rennick's last words were, "Too late, honey buns and homicide, baby. Honey buns and homicide."
Well, he must have been some egotist to mention the name of his book and his dying breath. Miss Morgan, what do you intend to do with the manuscript? Half a book isn't much use to anyone, is it?
We'll have one of our staff writers finish it.
Staff writers? Oh, you employ staff writers?
Well, there are a couple of people we can call on.
Either of them worked for Steve Rennick before?
Yes, one of the proofreaders.
A girl?
Troy, I don't
Just a minute, Inspector. There's a reason for this, believe me. One of them's a girl, Miss Morgan?
Yes.
Name?
Well, Miss Morgan?
Helen Fremont. She used to do a lot of secretarial work for Steve, too.
Inspector, I suggest we go talk to the lady.
May I remind you that you're under arrest?
Okay, but I've got a hunch.
I don't give a hoot about your hunches.
Oh, come now, Inspector. You know about Pete and his hunches. There have been a couple of times in the past when they've helped you quite a lot.
That'll be enough from you.
Now, where do we find Helen Fremont, Miss Morgan?
Her brother owns a cellar club in Soho, the Carlisle. She spends a lot of time there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Troy. We don't open till 6.
I'm not a customer, Mr. Fremont. I just wanted to have a chat with your sister. Helen is here, isn't she?
Who wants to know?
Peter, Troy. Just tell her it's about Janine Lee and Steve Rennick. She'll understand.
Now, look.
Tell her.
I'll be watching you, Troy.
You do that.
You wanted to see me, Mr. Troy?
If you're Helen Fremont.
I am.
You know what I like about this case? It's just oozing with pulchritude. You know what pulchritude means? It means feminine glamour. Then, of course, you know what the word means. After all, you're a writer, aren't you?
Hardly.
Oh, but I hear different.
What do you want?
The truth. I found it's an elusive thing. Much more elusive than that perfume you're wearing.
What are you driving at, Mr. Troy?
Didn't anyone ever tell you about that perfume, Helen? It doesn't become you at all. It's too thick and heavy. And it's like a trademark.
What do you mean?
Rennick's apartment reeked of it the night he was killed. The manuscript of his half-finished novel reeks of it, too.
What are you talking about?
Honey Buns and Homicide. And I don't mean the title of his book, either.
Harry?
Trouble?
I think there's going to be.
You'd better tell that fella to keep away from me. I don't like his face. I'm liable to want to change the shape of it. Why, you... If you see what I mean.
You want to get away with it?
No, Harry, we don't want any trouble.
Yeah, but...
What do you want with me, Troy?
Confession. This isn't a joke, Miss Fremont. You killed Steve Rennick.
Did I? Tell me about it.
First, I'll tell you this. Steve Rennick was no writer. In his whole life, he only wrote one book, the first one. It caught the public's eye, and it was a bestseller. But he couldn't maintain the standard. Well, his name was made, but he just didn't have the talent to write another novel.
Then who wrote the others?
You did. You were his ghostwriter. Oh, don't deny it. Melissa Morgan spilled the beans down at Scotland Yard.
All right, so I won't deny it. I wrote all Steve's books after that first one. But that doesn't mean I killed him.
Doesn't it? All right. Let's look at the facts for a minute. Now, it had to be someone who knew their way around Steve's apartment. Someone who knew where everything was kept. His gun, for instance. Just before you pulled that stunt with the petrol and matches, I was searching his apartment. Now, he kept his gun in his bureau drawer. And it was locked.
So?
So, apart from Steve, only one other person would have the key to that drawer. The girl who was not only his ghostwriter, but his part-time secretary. You.
That's not evidence.
Now, coming back to that fire. Now, the person who broke in through that window didn't even use a torch, and the room was pitch black. Therefore, the intruder knew her way around. Knew where every stick of furniture was. You're the one that fits. And then we come to the reason behind the fire.
Oh, yes, the fire. Tell me about that, Mr. Troy.
That manuscript beside Rennick's typewriter was written on another machine. Now, that's logical, isn't it?
Of course. As I wrote the books, it's obvious that the manuscripts would be written on my own machine.
Right. Page 149 was on the roller of his machine.
He always kept the last page in his typewriter so that any visitor would assume he was working on it.
Oh, that's so. But then again, on the sideboard next to the front door, we found the remains of some more of the manuscript. Yes, ma'am. Pages 150 to 163.
So?
You dropped those pages into him the day before yesterday. Just a few seconds before you pulled the trigger and killed him.
You're crazy.
He couldn't do the usual routine of slipping the last page into his machine. Because he was dead.
You can prove all this.
Oh, I don't have to. Now, the police are going to look after that part of it. But I haven't finished yet, either. We still have to find a motive, don't we?
Then can you?
Well, I can try. How does this fit? There was something else in that apartment which had to be destroyed. The original manuscript of Steve Rennick's very first novel. The one he wrote himself. And why did that have to be destroyed? Because he wrote a dedication on the front page, didn't he? It read, "For Helen, my devoted wife." And that's you, isn't it?
No. You're making a mistake.
That's why you tolerated him stealing all your glory. You had to do it. His publishers wanted it that way, didn't they? And they still want it that way. Because by now, Steve Rennick's name sells his novels just as much as their plot lines. But you'd had enough of them, hadn't you?
You don't know what it was like. No one could know.
Janine Lee?
That was the one he was falling in love with. The others didn't count. They were nothing. But Janine Lee. Yes, I killed Steve, and I'd do it again.
Okay, Troy. So now you've got the story.
I sure have, Buster.
But you're not going to live to repeat any of what you just found out.
Troy, don't be a fool. Put away that
Out of the way, Helen. Steve got everything he deserved. And now this nosy
Drop
private...
that gun, Fremont.
Why, you...
Please, drop that gun.
Oh, I meant to tell you, Ellen. The police came in here with me. They had to. You see, I'm still under arrest for unlawful entry.
Oh,
Careful, Troy.
It's okay, Inspector. You only got him in the shoulder. Did you get all that?
Yes, the sergeant got it all down in shorthand. All right, you'll have to come with us, Mrs. Rennick. You too, Fremont.
Mrs. Rennick. No one's called me that in a long time. Just to tie up the ends for you, Helen was in Steve's apartment all the time. All the time Janine was there anyway. She heard the row, every word of it. And that was the final straw. She'd already taken his gun, so the thought of killing him wasn't a new one. As soon as Janine went into the other room to powder her nose, Helen came on out of the closet, shot Rennick, threw the gun on the floor, and lit out, leaving the repentant redhead to take the rap. As for the fire, well, it was the only way she could get rid of that evidence without attracting suspicion to herself. And as for Melissa Morgan, well, she wanted the secret kept. Her company had too much at stake. She wasn't at all keen on having me delving around looking for the truth. I was bound to find out about Helen Rennick being Steve's ghost. Well, what with ghosts and gals and honey buns and homicide, it was quite a case, wasn't it?